What's going on YouTube? So Infiniti's lineup has been undergoing some changes over the last few years. Yet even with products like the all-new QX50 coming out, it's actually the QX60 that remains their top selling product. That's why we've come out to Infiniti of Lexington today to check out the latest version of their breadwinner and see what's changed for 2020. Of course, if you're in the market for any new Infiniti, make sure you stop by their dealership or visit them virtually via their website, which we provided a link to in the video description. So with that all said, let's see what has made the QX60 such a popular offering. So as always, we'll start with the exterior design, which for 2020 is unchanged. Despite that though, it still looks pretty fresh, since Infiniti has previously updated the styling several times to keep it up to date with the latest design language. The limited model from last year is no longer offered, so every model gets this double arc grille with chrome surround and black mesh in the middle. Now turning to the headlights, we have our first 2020 change, and that's that the headlights have been upgraded to LEDs instead of the previous HIDs. And that does now make it match with the LED daytime running lights and the LED fog lights. Heading around to the side and back, it continues to hide its size well, thanks to the sharp body lines and narrow, partially LED taillights. Like the front, all models now share this same style. So overall, the small continuous updates to the QX60 have kept it looking pretty fresh and stylish. Now moving on to the wheels, there continues to be two options on the 60. What we have are the upgraded 20-inch 15-spoke alloys that come on models with the sensory package. But the standard wheel on both trims is an 18-inch contrast alloy. Coming on up to the mirrors, every model will have heating, power folding, and blind spot monitoring, plus auto dimming is available when you add the Pro Assist package. And speaking of the Pro packages, those are where you will find the extra active safety features besides for the standard forward emergency braking with pedestrian detection. Lux models can choose either the Pro Active or the Pro Assist packages, which both offer adaptive cruise control, auto high beam headlights, rear auto braking, and blind spot intervention. But the Assist package also adds lane keeping assist and pre-crash seatbelts. Anyways, that's all the updates on the outside. So now let's see if anything is new on the interior. So walking up to the 2020 QX60, right away you'll notice one of the 2020 changes, and that's that we have a brand new Keyfob design. Now a lot of you guys will be very happy to see this because this is not shared with Nissan. Whether or not it rolls out to all the 2020 Infinitis, I do not know at this time, but it definitely is here on the QX60. Now as far as the remote start system, that comes on the Lux model only. Now to get inside the vehicle, all you have to do is just press this button on the door handle and it'll open right up. Alright, so taking a look inside the cabin, as you can tell, the design has not really changed for this year. Now as far as your color and material options, they do also carry over for 2020. So what you'll be looking at is either a graphite color option or this wheat color option across all the models, no matter what materials you get. And then as far as the actual materials, on the Pure and the Lux without any optional equipment, they both come standard with leatherette seating. But if you go for the Essential package, that's where you'll upgrade to real leather with a graphite weave color trim. When you go for the Sensory package, that gets you upgraded to this model's leather here with the special hourglass stitching, and it also comes with the exclusive maple wood trim. Now turning over here to your door trim, it is of course very nicely finished. You've got leather over most of it, including above it with some nice stitching detail. And then like I was saying, the Sensory model does give you this exclusive maple wood trim. You do have 2-person memory seating when you go for the Luxe trim, and all 4 of your windows are one-touch automatic. Coming down here to your seat, it is 10-way power adjusting with 2-way lumbar support. The 2-way power lumbar is a Luxe exclusive model or feature, so you won't find that on the Pure. Then, like I already said, this is of course real leather. It feels very nice, and I do appreciate the hourglass stitching. Definitely adds that extra level of detail, and we do have some silver contrast piping along the side as well. Now, as most of you probably know by this point, the QX60 is related to the Pathfinder, but you'll be happy to know that you will not notice anything really with the interior materials. So, across the upper dash, you do have a nice soft touch plastic and a really nice color contrast stitching detail that runs across it. Dropping down to the middle here, we've got more of that nice soft touch plastic, the real maple wood trim. And down, even in the lower areas, we do have a really nice leatherette covering where your knees might touch. Now to start every QX60, just press the button. When you do, you will see this 8-inch display fire up across every single model. Now checking out the gauges here, these are your traditional Infiniti gauges, so they're mostly analog with that nice kind of purpley hue to them. And you do have a multifunction display in the middle. This can cycle through all of your basic information, including your navigation. You do have some settings as well for your driver's assistance systems. Now coming back to the steering, it is electric power assisted. And you do have a leather wrap steering wheel across all the trim levels, and also some color contrast stitching as well on the wheel. As far as your buttons, these have to do with your multifunction display, your audio, phone, and voice controls. And then on this side, you've got your adaptive cruise controls as well as the button to turn on and off some of your safety systems. When you go for the Essential package, you will get rain sensing wipers. And when you go for the Luxe model, that's where you have the power steering wheel added. So as far as interior storage, Infiniti does do a really good job of maximizing it. So we'll start out over here with your center console. Now this actually opens up in 2 different tiers. So you've got upper and lower. Obviously each button does correspond to that. So if you open up the upper part, you have a small bin. This would be a great place for sticking small objects, and it does have a really nice felt lining on it. And when you do the lower, that's where you open up the much larger compartment. It is quite deep and fairly wide. You've got 2 different layers to it. And this whole thing is also nicely felt lined, so I do like that about it. You will also find a 12-volt outlet and 2 of your USB ports right there. Beyond that, we've got 2 cup holders, and you'll find an additional USB port, a USB Type-C port. Both are the higher voltage charging ones. And we do also have a 12-volt outlet inside of this textured storage bin that will help keep things in place. Now, unlike some of the competition, such as the MDX, Infiniti has stuck with a traditional shifter here. So you're just going to pull back for drive. You can bump over here to the left to shift manually through some simulated gears, but you're not going to find any paddle shifters. Heading into reverse, you will find a standard backup camera on all the models, but if you choose the Luxe with the Essential package, that's where you'll get the around view monitor. So as you can see, this does work the same as other Infiniti models. So you've got both your traditional view as well as your 360 view on the right side. And you probably also heard the sound effects of the person walking behind. That's the moving object detection. And I don't believe we have it set on right now, but the mirrors will also fold down to help you see the parking lines better when you're in reverse. Now, as far as what's behind the shifter here, you do have your drive mode selector. So this dot right here is the normal mode. You also have a sport mode, an eco mode, and a snow mode. And then next to it, you'll find your controls for the climate controlled seats. Now, 3-stage heating is standard across all the models. However, you will have to go for the sensory package to get the 3-stage ventilation. Alright, so now that brings us up here to our audio system. So all but the very base pure model is going to come with a Bose sound system. However, when you choose the sensory model, it's going to upgrade from a 13-speaker Bose to a 15-speaker Bose. That, of course, is what we have, so let's go ahead and take a listen. Sound quality of this system is excellent. And I do also want to point out the fact that you do have all these physical controls right here, which is something a lot of companies have moved away from, as well as having a CD player. Alright, so now that brings us up here to our climate controls. Now this panel is kind of shared dually between your control knob for the infotainment as well as your climate controls. So you've noticed the climate controls run across the top, and your temperature adjustments are here on both sides. So obviously, to change the temperature, you're just going to click those buttons right like that, and you can change the zones right there. And you will notice some of the information pops up on the display to show you what is going on. You can also press the climate button to make adjustments up here. So you'll notice that we can turn on and off the steering wheel heating, even though there is also a physical button over there. We can also make adjustments to the rear climate from here, or they can do it, of course, in the back. It is 3-zone automatic as standard equipment. Alright, so now that brings us to our Infiniti InTouch system. So we'll go ahead and take a look around that. Now, this is the newest Infiniti InTouch software. However, it's kind of merged with the older style physical controller down here. So basically what you'll be looking at is not having a home screen, but instead you'll navigate through the different sections using these shortcut buttons down here. So we'll shoot into the navigation to start off with. This is a standard if you go for the Essential package on the Lux model. And as you can see, we do have a nice map display. It does have pinch to zoom, as well as reasonably good graphics. The closest thing you do have to a home screen is your status screen, and you can just cycle through a few different things to choose kind of what you want to display here. But that's pretty much all I'm going to cover about the Infiniti InTouch system. However, as always, we do have a dedicated tech help video available for those of you who want to learn more. A link to that video will be in the description. Heading on up from that, we will find an auto-dimming mirror with your built-in 3 HomeLink universal remotes across all the models. Now, checking out the moonroof here, this is actually standard across every model, no matter what you choose. It's just a single panel. However, we also have the separate dual panel in the back. As you can see, it goes all the way back through the 2nd row as well as the 3rd row. And you can control the sunshade with this button up here in the front. This is part of the sensory package on the fully loaded model, which is what we have. But overall, the cabin of the QX60 remains a very comfortable place to spend time. There's plenty of space, there's lots of luxurious features, and this is a vehicle that costs quite a bit less than a lot of the competition, so it still continues to be a good choice in the luxury family crossover segment. When you open the door, you will notice that the steering wheel and the seat do move out of the way to help easier entry and exit. Alright, so now I'll go ahead and hand it off to my brother Mason, who will check out the very important rear areas. So heading around to the second row of the 2020 Infiniti QX60, you are going to be very pleasantly surprised since this is one of the largest offerings in the class. You're going to find 42 inches of rear legroom and 38 inches of rear headroom, which does place it above its main rivals like the Audi Q7 and Acura MDX. Now turning over here to the door trim, you do have a really nicely appointed one, so it is leather wrapped all the way through here, as well as above that. And you do have some more wood, as well as a padded material on the upper portion. Of course, your window is fully automatic, and down below that you have a cup, a bottle, 2 bottle holders. Now turning over to the seat itself, it is a very nice design. Here on this upper end model, we do have the quilted stitching here, as well as perforations, and it's also a very, very comfortable seat. Now here in the middle area, Infiniti does give you plenty of features. So you do have these rear vents, which are standard across all of the models, and you also have your own climate controls down here. Now it is 3-zone automatics, so you can adjust the fan speed as well as the temperature. And down below that you will find plenty of connections. You have a 12-volt power outlet, as well as a household style outlet, which is included in that theater package. And down below that you will find 2-stage heated rear seats included in the sensory package on the Lux, as well as a charging USB port and an HDMI. Now you do also have a nice fold down armrest with cup holders inside. And up top on this model, we do also have the dual panel moonroof. It's not super great for the second row because a lot of it is covered up by this middle portion, but for the third row, you will see in just a minute, it is actually a very, very nice feature to have. Now off to the side you do have some lighting, as well as an assist grip and coat hook. And working our way down, you will of course notice that we do have the theater package on this model, which includes the dual 8-inch screens, as well as a set of wireless headphones. Now like I mentioned, this is one of the largest offerings in the class, and that definitely shows behind your seating position. So behind that I probably have at least 9 to 10 inches of rear leg room, and my feet can easily slide up underneath the seat, so any passenger back here is going to be extremely comfortable. Now to get in the third row of the QX60, Infiniti has made it actually very, very easy. So all you have to do is locate this little lever, pull it up. As you can see, the seat will kind of fold like a little sandwich. The bottom will fold up, and then you can slide it right out of the way. Infiniti also brags that if you have a child seat installed, it will not need to be removed. Now, turning around and looking in the third row, you are going to find a class competitive amount of space. So now let's go ahead and get back there and see what it's like for an adult. So first, sitting back here, it is decent for an adult back here, so I don't really have any leg room, but it is worth noting that this seat is scooted all the way back, and you can slide it forward if you need to. Now in addition to that, my feet do have a spot to go, which is nice. It's a little bit crammed, and thigh support is not the best in the class. However, it is not too bad if you had a child back here. Now off to the side, Infiniti does give you some pretty nice features. You have 2 cup holders, as well as a smart charging USB port on both sides. And like I was mentioning in the second row, I really do like this dual panel moonroof setup. It really helps air out the third row, especially in an otherwise kind of cramped space. And in order to fold the seat back into place, you just push it. And it's a very, very simple process.
Now heading around to the tailgate of the QX60, you are going to find a standard hands-free one. So all you have to do to open it is wave your foot under the bumper. Now once inside the QX60's trunk, you are going to find a class competitive amount of space. You're going to find 16 cubic feet behind the third row seats, and if you fold them, it expands to 41 cubic feet. Now if you fold all of the seats, you're going to get 77 cubic feet as a maximum, which, like I mentioned, is class competitive with the Audi Q7 and Acura MDX. Now as far as how Infiniti finishes the back here, it is very nice. As you can see, you do have aluminum scuff plates here, and underneath of the floor you do have some more storage compartments, as well as your Bose subwoofer. And in order to fold the third row, Infiniti has made it pretty easy. So all you have to do is pull this little strap, now fold the headrest, and push that forward. Now I do also want to mention that Infiniti has given you a power return feature, which is really quite nice, because folding it obviously is not that hard, but actually getting it back up is pretty difficult. So Infiniti has remedied that by just giving you this power return function. Now off to that, you do also have a 12-volt power outlet as well. Now turning over to the passenger seat, it is 8-way power adjusting. And in front of the passenger, you do have nice materials. And down below that, you have a really good sized glove box. It's actually quite massive. It's one of the biggest glove boxes I've seen, and it is also nicely felt lined. Up top, we do have a sun visor with a light and mirror, and it does also detach and extend. But anyway, guys, that sums up all of the rear areas of this QX60. So now let's go ahead and get on the road and see how it performs out there.
Alright, so let's go ahead and get into the powertrain. Now, like most of the things about this vehicle for 2020, it does carry over unchanged. So you're looking at the same 3.5 liter naturally aspirated V6. It is the VQ series. And that produces 295 horsepower and 270 pound-feet of torque. You can choose to put the power to the ground via the front wheels or all-wheel drive, regardless of which trim you choose. And your transmission will always be a continuously variable transmission with the D-step logic. As far as your fuel economy, that does also carry over again. It is rated at 20 city, 27 highway, 22 combined with front-wheel drive. 19 city, 26 highway, 22 combined with all-wheel drive. And those numbers do put it pretty much in line with rivals like the Audi Q7 and the Acura MDX. But anyways, let's go ahead and take it on the road and see how it performs there. Alright, so first launching off in the 2020 Infiniti QX60. Power feels pretty good getting started there. I'm noticing right from the start here, it does feel like it's definitely tuned differently from the Nissan Pathfinder.
Definitely.
Because they do, of course, share the same powertrain, same transmission. But yeah, right from the start, I'm noticing it doesn't really feel the same. I think it's just because it's just tuned to be more aggressive, make things feel more lively right from the start, you know, where the Pathfinder, you really have to get into it to get things moving. We're also cruising along here on a relatively bumpy road, and doing a comment on the fact that I can basically hear the bumps, but really can't feel anything. So we do have a nice ride, as you'd expect for an Infiniti. Yeah, throttle response, wow. Yeah, definitely a lot more aggressive. like that about it, because the Pathfinder could feel a bit heavy. I mean, it just felt like a big SUV, and this feels lighter on its feet just because when I tip into the throttle, we start moving immediately, we get going, like I said, whereas then the Pathfinder, you kind of have to get into it a little bit more. It just kind of makes it feel like it's heavier and more slower.
And, you know, this car, it definitely has a better sound than the Pathfinder. It has like almost a raspy type of note, which is really quite uncommon in like the luxury class of vehicle. You know, when you first step on it, you know, it sounds pretty good. I actually kind of like it. And like Drew was mentioning with the ride quality, this QX60 definitely rides like a luxury vehicle. You know, sitting here, I am extremely comfortable. These seats are, you know, one of the most comfortable seats that I've sat in. And it's just you know, it's so quiet in here. You know, I could see a lot of people just like taking this down the freeway and just like all 7 other people besides the driver taking a nap, because it really is a cushy ride. It's very luxurious feeling in here, and it's quiet. You know, it's an ultimate, you know, family hauler here.
Kind of rounding that corner there onto this on-ramp, it is worth mentioning this is not a sporty, you know, crossover. This is definitely luxury-minded. Infiniti is very clear about that, and you will notice some body roll as such. But like we said, usually you're not going to find both a really great ride and a lot of body composure unless you're going for some type of really fancy adaptive suspension like you may find in some of the German competition that costs $20,000-$30,000 more than this vehicle. So just something to keep in mind. Now what I'll go ahead and do is click it into our sport mode to see what we've been in the normal mode the whole time, so we'll try and see what the sport mode does differently. Again, what's going to happen is it's going to ramp up the aggressiveness. The CVT, you know, CVTs are variable by nature, and they can just kind of change depending on what type of mode you have it in. So when you're in the eco, it really dulls down the throttle response, keeps things tamer. But when we go into the sport, we really rev things up and get things moving. But overall, I think the driving experience here in the QX60 is quite pleasant. Like I mentioned, honestly, I think Nissan needs to take this tuning of this powertrain and bring it to the Pathfinder, because it really doesn't feel like the same. I was expecting that it would feel a lot more similar to the Pathfinder, and like I said, really it's amazing what a little bit of differences with the tuning.
For sure.
How much difference that it can make, because this feels like it has like 50 more horsepower, and it just felt a lot lighter on its feet, and you know, and then having the more luxurious ride, it does feel like a different experience for if that was something that you were worried about.
Now, as far as the pricing is concerned for the 2020 Infiniti QX60, you are going to find pricing very competitive for the class. So for the base front-wheel drive models, you have 2 trim levels. So you have the Pure model, which starts at $44,350, and you have the Lux, which starts at $46,150. Now you might be thinking that's only about a $2,000 price difference between the trim levels, and basically what separates those two is just a few features, but the Pure really cannot get any option packages on it, so you're going to be, you know, right at that price point, whereas the Lux can go way up to where we have this one equipped. Now, if you want all-wheel drive, that's going to be an additional $2,000 on both of those trim levels. Now, like I just mentioned, this particular model does have quite a few option packages checked off. This one's about as fully loaded as you can get it. So we do have the Essential package for $2,900, as well as the Sensory package for $3,500, the Proactive package for $3,400, the Theater package for $2,150, Premium Paint for $500, as well as the Cargo package for $360. And finally, when you add in the destination charge of $995, this particular model as equipped comes in at $61,955, which, like I mentioned, is pretty much top dollar for a QX60 now that the limited trim is eliminated. And, it is very class competitive. It fits right in line with the Acura MDX, and it is going to be quite a bit cheaper than the Audi Q7 if that's what you're cross-shopping it with. Well guys, we've enjoyed watching the first in-depth look at the 2020 Infiniti QX60 Lux. Please hit those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.